Hello, my name's Hannah. I'm very new to this YouTube space, but I am starting to find my voice a little bit and finding a desire to want to share, talk, connect. And today I want to share my story with nihilism, how I fell into nihilism and how I got out of nihilism or am currently getting out of nihilism. So I'll give a little bit of backstory about myself. I have always been, I guess, a spiritual person. I'm sure that people would sort of put me into the new age category. Tarot cards, astrology, chakras, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, when I first started getting into all of that and just coming into understanding my spirituality, what that means, exploring that, I've always been a seeker. I've always wanted to understand and know the mysteries of the universe and the world and why things are the way that they are. And so I was about 15 when I started just becoming aware of different things, dabbling with different traditions and exploring spiritual ideas and truths. And I'm 24 now, and there's been a lot that has happened in those, years. And I never fully, I would say, dove into any one specific tradition, very wholeheartedly, very intentionally. Like, I definitely was kind of just like, taking little bits, and I think there is a beauty in that, and I think I can also see how you lose a lot of the potency of those traditions, of those practices. And I think that when it comes to what we see today, especially in the West, there's this whole, like I said, idea of new age, and how none of these practices within the new age sphere are really new age. They are all coming from different religious and spiritual traditions that have existed for thousands of years. So it's just more of this like mish mosh and pick and choose, and sort of this westernized, colonized idea of these practices. They might not be as rooted in their original tradition. And I think that there's beauty in that. And I can also see the harm and just the not so good, as there's light and dark to everything. So I've always dabbled, I've always searched, and I've always been open. And I've never felt that one path has the answer. And I've always valued remaining curious and realizing that I don't think the whole mystery of the universe can be summed up by one person and by one spiritual tradition. I recently heard someone on a podcast say that life is just too weird for that, and I felt really resonant with that. So I've always had a sense of something bigger than myself. I've always felt connected to something bigger than myself and had that sort of guiding principle. I was never like 100% certain about my beliefs, but I believed in the afterlife. I believed in souls, and I believed in this idea of, how do I want to word this? Of interconnectedness and there being a reason behind everything. And June of last year, so 2025, I had a friend who I was very close with, and she started to go down a different spiritual path than she originally had been following, and started dedicating her life to Christianity. And because of the nature of this friendship and the depth of this friendship, it very much sent me into a place of confusion and just confusion, honestly. And I started to really take a look at my own beliefs and see why I hold the beliefs that I do. And I felt so shaken by this change and by this friendship that was very, very dear to me, very, very close to me. I felt a dismantling, and it was almost like a part of my identity started to be shaken up. My whole identity, in a sense, started to be shaken up. And it left me with a lot of questions. I have always rejected religion. I have always felt that, like I said before, there is not one path, there is not one religion that has gotten it 100% right. I just don't resonate with it. It's really as simple as that. And I have a lot of other thoughts, but that's not for this video. So it was really hard for me because I really rejected this change. And like I said, it left me very confused. And in this process, I started to feel really distrustful of my own beliefs and of the world around me, everything that I had known. And I fell into this place of feeling nothing, like literally feeling so disconnected from any sense of spirituality. It was like this almost betrayal that I felt from this friendship and from the changes that were happening within that friendship. The betrayal made me so distrustful of any sense of spirituality that I had to completely shut it off. And I really started to focus on like the logistics and reason and wanting to know wanting to have answers, but in a very logical way. And I think that was, in a sense, a coping mechanism and sort of like a safety net where I was like, okay, I don't know what I can believe. So let me look at the facts. What are the facts? And I really started to rely on my intellect, and I started listening to a bunch of different podcasts and educating myself on, religion and the psychology of religion and different things within theology, and really wanting to understand just the logistics behind it and the psychology behind it, a way to rationally explain why this was happening to my friend. And I found Britt Hartley from No Nonsense Spirituality during this time. And her content honestly helped, like, it saved me in more ways than I know, because this is when I started to fall into nihilism, when I started to lean so heavily on my intellect, and I was so distrustful of my spirituality, and I felt like I had to reject all forms of spirituality. Whereas before, like, I was very much a person who, wanted to believe in the magic and the woo woo and the mystery, and really embraced that. And I just felt that I couldn't find any safety within that anymore. And I started to feel a sense of meaninglessness, because I couldn't find any magic anymore, right? Like, I would just rationalize it. If something happened, I would just rationalize it. I would just say, oh, well, this happened because of X, Y, and Z. And whereas before, something could happen that seems coincidental or synchronistic, and I would automatically attribute that to my spiritual guidance, right? To some sort of energy beyond myself, right? My soul, all of that. And I just couldn't feel that anymore. It was gone. It felt gone. And it was such a anxiety inducing time. Like, I had so much anxiety because I constantly felt like, what is right? Like, I didn't know what was right and what was wrong to believe. I was so afraid of what if I'm wrong? What if my beliefs are wrong? And I spent a lot of time in that space and just being confused and not knowing, and trying to find this sense of myself again that I once felt when I was very connected to my own spirituality. And it just wasn't, I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get there. I couldn't feel it. And it created just such a sense of, like, sadness within me, because I was like, am I ever going to feel that again? Am I ever going to feel that connection to myself? And being in this space of just rationalizing everything and not seeing any magic in the world anymore, any hope, any hope. Like, I just didn't see any hope in the world. And this is when nihilism really became prevalent. I would say from June of 2025 till about January of 2026, I really just was in that headspace, and I couldn't find any sense of spirituality. I couldn't find any sense of connection to the mystery of that feeling that I've connected to so many times in my life. I couldn't get to it. And then just this, in the couple of months, what did I just say? In the last couple of months, I've started to find glimmers again. And part of how that has happened is is really understanding this idea of meaning, of meaningfulness. What is meaningful? What gives something meaning? Because when I was in that place of nihilism, I wasn't giving meaning to anything. I wasn't letting anything give me that sense of joy and transcendence and awe versus letting myself feel that. And I don't remember the first instance that this happened, but I know that this happened, I would say 2 or 3 times between like January to now. Also, sorry, my throat is like extremely dry. I'm talking too much. From January to now, this has happened about 2 or 3 times. But I've had a moment where something has happened and I've realized that I get to let it have meaning. I get to choose for something to have meaning. Because in this state of nihilism, I started to really analyze this idea of right and wrong and, this religion says that this is the meaning and this religion says that this is the meaning. Because at the end of the day, all of these different traditions are trying to answer this question of why are we here? What is our purpose? What is the meaning of life? And so nihilism, I was like, there's no meaning, because I kept seeing the paradox. I kept seeing the fact of like, well, this can have meaning, but then this also has meaning, right? It's like, I came to realize that meaning is subjective, because what I feel has meaning might not be what has meaning to you. It's based off of our life experiences and our own individual personalities. I have a friend who every time she sees a cardinal, she sees that as a sign of her late friend. And that's meaningful to her. And who am I to take that away from her and tell her that she can't have that? Because that's what brings her joy. And that's what brings her comfort in this life. So I realized that I was stripping away all of my own joy, all of my own meaning. I wasn't letting life have any meaning because I was choosing to live in this place of like, well, there can only be one thing. It can only be one thing. I don't think it's one thing, because if you look around, it's not, there's a million of things that have meaning and give people purpose and joy in their life. And I'll speak for myself, when I was able to say, I am going to choose for this moment to have meaning in my life. I'm going to choose to give this significance because it brings me joy. It doesn't have to be that serious. Like, it really doesn't have to be that serious. And that's where the magic comes in. That's where the magic comes in, is being like, I get to choose to let things have meaning and to inspire me and to fill me with joy and gratitude. And that's going to be different from person to person. So I don't think there's one meaning. I don't think that there's necessarily one truth, because I constantly come back to paradox. and this idea that two truths exist at the same time, you know? So I think that life is just so mysterious. There is so much mystery. There is so much complexity. And at times that can be overwhelming, but also at times that can be so thrilling and exciting. And that is why we get to have these experiences that we have, why I get to have my own individual experience and you get to have your own individual experience, because there's multiple things existing at one time. And I just think that that's beautiful, and I'm choosing to see that as something great and something to honor and be in awe about, because the latter is quite depressing. And I don't want to live in that state anymore. I don't want anyone to live in that state, because it's not worth it. It's not worth it to live in that state, because there are things that you can find in your life that give you meaning. And I kept trying to tell myself, no, Hannah, you're just being, you're just having magical thinking, and you're just not being grounded in reality, and you're not being logical and like, it doesn't matter. Like, literally, that can only get you so far. And of course, there are nuances to that. There is a reality that is shared, and there is a basis of factual and, you know, reasonable understanding. That is a thing. But also, life is so mysterious, and we have to embrace that and accept that. I had to accept that I don't know. I don't have all the answers. But I can't let that induce a state of anxiety within me. I have to let that induce a state of curiosity and awe. And that is the awe. That is the transcendent space. Is, wow, there is so much to experience, and there is so much that I don't know. And I think being able to say, I don't know, is one of the most quote unquote spiritual things you can do. So I don't have the answers. I don't know. I'm still exploring, and I think I'll be exploring until the day I die, and I'm okay with that. That gives me comfort, knowing that I get to keep experiencing, because that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to experience. So I'd rather not label myself anything anyway. I've never liked to label myself anything. But I'm definitely not an atheist. I think life is... I've just had too many experiences in my life to believe, to be an atheist. Have had too many, yeah. And I'm sure there could be a reasonable, logical explanation for why those things have happened. But the thing with science is that it just keeps going on and on and on. So I think I'm just rambling now, saying things that I don't even really understand that I'm saying. But I hope this was coherent, and I hope that this helps somebody else, or even just yeah, help somebody else. So